"100 hands, reverse the law. Phase 1 set, now put on pause." They claimed the grid could not endure and fed the myth of power pure. The fuel was buried, not the plan. It only waits for votes to stand. From all they stacked the vessels deep. T-hand ran long though did not sleep. No chant was sung, no grave was raised. Just softer lights in western bays. A farmer passed through fields unclaimed. No one asked what was a name. Nuclear Belgium, hear the ground. Not a soul to turn it down. Nuclear Belgium, sold as clean. Ballots casted, elites decree. Nuclear Belgium, built to last. But the river learns too fast. They wrote it down in 23, then turned the page before the plea. The pause they pitched became a door, a lease renewed without a floor. The mask was spun in policy, but no one asked the river's fee. Nuclear Belgium, hear the ground. Not a soul to turn it down. Nuclear Belgium, sold as clean. Ballots casted, elites decree. Nuclear Belgium, built to last. But the river learns too fast. Now tell the child in Malta Day what steams beneath the concrete base. Dessel's drums into me lie, and NATO carries what we weigh. The wind from Flanders bends its back. The scaffold stands, but none look back. Nuclear Belgium, hear the ground. Not a soul to turn it down. Nuclear Belgium, sold as clean. Ballots casted, elites decree. Nuclear Belgium, built to last. But the river learns too fast.
Hello, everybody. Happy New Year. Happy New Year, indeed. It's Friday. It's the 2nd of January, 2026. Here we go, we're almost ready. Do-do-do-do. This story, I just haven't worked it out 100%. Let's have a look at this for a second, because it's kind of interesting. Power restored near Europe's largest nuclear plant. So power restored is external power coming into the plant. External power coming into the plant. Sapophoria, or whatever the hell it's called. Which is right across the river is a massive amount of farmland. You can't see it in that picture, but if you look at it from an airplane shot, you'll see it's surrounded by farms. Well, across the river, it's just farms everywhere. Radiation doesn't respect rivers or borders. Connection is considered vital as it provides a key supply route via one of the plant's 2 remaining external power lines. It's vital. Now, the reactor's not running. It's not putting power out. but it has to have external power to cool the fuel pools and run the site. The site can't run on its own power, and it's not producing any power. And so it's not sending power out, it's power coming in. It's 330 kilovolt system. Short answer is single 330 kilovolt transmission circuit can carry hundreds of megawatts. Hundreds of megawatts. So it can supply roughly 100,000 to 500,000 homes. So think about how much energy you need for each reactor. So a reactor is going to use 4,500 tons of water a minute. That's equal to 4,500 one-ton pickup trucks every 60 seconds. There's 70 one-ton pickup trucks with 1,000 liters, a ton of water a second. 70 one-ton pickup trucks a second. And so when you got multiple reactors, this is a big site. So you're looking at around 6,450,000 one-ton pickup trucks in 24 hours for each of the reactor cores. This is a lot of energy, right? And it looks something like this, apparently. A 330 kilovolt system can supply roughly 100,000 to 500,000 homes. If that don't beat all, eh? So it's getting power from a thermal power plant. It's just like it's dependent on 2 external power plants to run the site. 2 weeks after the line was severed and amid the military activity, connection is considered vital. It provides a key supply route via one of the plant's 2 remaining external power lines. So it's not running. The plant has been shut down for quite a few years, but it needs energy. And that's an awful lot of energy. The agreement enabled the restoration of power infrastructure critical to nuclear safety. Again, they're talking about the plant incoming electric system, which is enough electricity to power. This is just one of the lines, by the way. There was 10 external lines. Can supply roughly 100,000 to 500,000 homes with electricity. Complete loss of off-site power experienced. So no external power, so they're dependent upon the generators. The latest repair efforts restore electricity transmission between the plant's switchyards and a neighboring thermal plant 2 weeks after the line was severed. It's provided a key supply route via one of the plant's 2 remaining external power lines, a 330 kilovolt system. So I got to do a bit more research. What they're saying is you got to pump in almost 500,000 homes worth of power to run a nuclear plant, to power 500,000 homes, basically. Nuclear power plant it needs 2 lines. Like the nuclear power plant requires reliable offsite electricity to cool the reactor and to spend fuel. Again, all of these connotations is talking about external power coming into the plant, even when they're not generating power. Before the war, they had 10 external power lines. This is madness. Had access to 10 external power lines. Nuclear power plants require reliable offsite electricity to cool the reactors and to spend fuel. That's a lot of electricity. The new dude taking over the Large Hadron Collider only to switch it off. To investigate the mysteries of the universe. And open a few portals and black holes and produce cancer for millions and billions of people. That's their end goal is sadistic. They spent a lot of money on, this is United Nations. So this is United Nations' newest little butt pea. A professor of experimental particle physics at the University of Cambridge, UK, has landed one of the most coveted jobs in global science. Coveted jobs. That's the best way to prove you're evil is to get that job, I guess. One of the first things he's going to do for the next 4 years, 5 years, is turn the machine off. And it won't restart until his term is almost over. If anything, he's relishing what the next 5 years hold. It's in line with Einstein's seminal equation equals mc squared. Well, who knows if Einstein was a patent? He was a guy who verified patents. He was educated. He was a smart guy back in those days, absolutely. But he was a guy, like back in those days, and a lot of these inventors were very solitude type people. They coveted, they hid their secrets. They wanted to keep their inventions secret. And so the best way to do that was have nobody, a lot of them were disenfranchised on top of that. Back in these days, it was very difficult times. And so, I had always thought about this, that what happened to the patent when people died? Because back in those days, dying was a pretty close. It was pretty close to everybody back then. It was very difficult times. You're burning cold in your house, for goodness sakes. I grew up burning cold. In our back room, you were afraid to go into it because when you come out, you're always black, right? I grew up with no automobiles, no roads. In line with Einstein's seminal equation. Starting in June, a shutdown will make way for high luminosity LHC. A major upgrade involves installing powerful new superconducting magnets to squeeze the collider's proton beams and make them brighter. So they have this facility is 300 feet down or more. They will raise the number of collisions in the machine tenfold. They have particles going one way almost at the speed of light, particles coming the other way, and they have multiple different places where they can intersect. And this is done with magnets, of course, to keep everything centered so that they can hit each other, are being straightened to making them better able to capture the subtle signs of a new physics collision can reveal. But then there's a lot of experts that are out there, that whistleblowers that are talking about it's all about opening up portals. And right now they can't keep the portal open for more than 30 seconds. And now they're talking about like 17 dimensions. Well, that's what they're claiming is actually 17 dimensions. This is strictly off the table, but these are people that work there that have been quoted directly. If the upgrade works, if it works, it doesn't mean it's going to work. Hopefully it doesn't work. Elementary particles gain their masses from Higgs, but why the masses vary as they do is anyone's guess. So they don't even know what they're doing. It's not even clear how Higgs boson interacts with one another. No, because the idea is look over there, not at the portals that they're playing around with. So this is why they want a 90-kilometer one, because they can't keep it open for more than 30 seconds. They're hoping a 90-kilometer one. See, like some of them were talking about being able to go into a different dimension, take resources and bring them back into our dimension, which is, these are people that work there. Remember, I'd done a presentation on this not that long ago, and where they had scientists with dissenting voices about what these things are capable of. LHC reaches the end of its life around 2041, and CERN's member states must decide what comes next. Member states, this is United Nations. They run your whole planet. And they got 195 countries signed on that it doesn't matter what you think, what you say, what you want. Your country will contribute enormous amounts of money to every facet, every subsidy of United Nations, which used to be League of Nations, right? And Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they seen a way to be extra evil, and they changed their name to League of Nations, which was 195 military, and Eisenhower called it a military-industrial complex. Excuse me. The FCC would be more than 3 times the size of the LHC, calling for a new 91-kilometer circular tunnel to be bored up to 400 meters underground. So they're under all these farms, so anybody can buy a farm and drill down into that thing and let her take the wind out of their sail permanently. It's a very vulnerable thing to do, to build your machine that is so evil with these kinds of flaws. The machine would be built in 2 stages. It's not very deep either, right? It's not very hard to drill down and destroy that thing. So let me see, one of the farmers builds a pond, like a 5-acre pond, and then he decides he wants to drill down looking for more water. Oops, and he accidentally taps into the tunnel, and his whole pond drains down there. That machine would be ripped out to make way for a new collider that smashes protons at 7 times the energy of the LHC. At some point in the 2070s, and we covered a story last week about Eric Schmidt, former Google, him and the Wendy Foundation, Eric and Wendy Foundation, were considered donating $1 billion, which is not very much for Eric, who makes drones that chase people around until he blow them up. It's just a matter of a while before somebody chases Eric Schmidt or Wendy around with a drone and blows them up. I can tell you that much. People are not this stupid. And you can see they got the 3 6s. Right, to see the little lines off-centered. Oh, by the way, we got a poll somewhere. Should it be a crime to claim that nuclear fallout is harmless, like natural bananas or sunshine or air travel or sleeping next to somebody or climbing a mountain? It's not illegal to poison you with radiation, right? The Congress and parliaments and diets don't have the authority to make it illegal to poison you with radiation. Only the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Now, the government could make it, the Senate and the parliamentaries and everybody else can make it illegal to poison you with 3,000 chemicals, but they can't make it illegal to poison you with anthropogenic man-made radiation. These things released a lot of, the Hadron Collider releases a lot of radiation, apparently. Very toxic radiation on top of that. Maybe this is why they're changing our scientists all the time, right? They got all these useful idiots begging to go there for street creds, right? That's where it's located, apparently. And you can see the small one, the small circle is the one they got now. The big circle is the one they want to put there. So they actually want to go under, I'm guessing that's the freshwater. I know the ocean is not that far away from it, but I think that's fresh water we're looking at, the blue. But where they're located, that could be seawater. Who knows? CERN's member states, which is 195 countries, who will vote on the project in 2028, cannot foot the whole bill. Yeah, because they're giving money to everything else United Nations got, right? UNICEF and the World Health Organization, UNSCLEAR, Europa, the IPRC. They're actually significantly embedded in every facet of your children's lives worldwide. They have a foundation, not a foundation, but a subsidy of UN that meddles in every facet of your child's life. Every child on the planet, they're they're successfully manipulating their upbringing, their health, their diets, their intakes, their water, their curriculum in school and universities, institutions. So other contributors are needed. No, this is just a greedy, evil organization. That's what this is. But there has always been more to churn in science because, it's called portals. But because of the lab, Europe is the world leader in particle physics, attracting tens of thousands of researchers. These are scumbags. These are not researchers. Yeah, they went to university, they got incredible education, after education, and they would have stayed in university for the rest of their lives if the nuclear industry didn't suck them up, and use them, compartmentalize them, and use them for stuff like this. Other countries, notably the United States and China, have their own plans for advanced colliders. Yes, everybody get evil, why not? This is absolutely not the time to give up, said Thompson. This is absolutely time to give up. So why would Thompson say that? Why would that be the very last sentence either on top of that? Because they're struggling? I hope they all freaking blow themselves up personally. River fishing limits remain 11 years after the nuclear disaster. This is 2022. In 2022, they had removed the restrictions in all the communities, and these places far away were still so radioactive you couldn't go fishing. Savannah River is planning on using mixed oxide fuel. Going to reclaim some legacy isotopes. It's a very interesting story. Let me go down and find that, get that. This is a really important story. What did I do? Oh. Many nuclear reactors are losing their glow. It's hilarious. There's a Russian cargo ship that was sunk with a whole bunch of nuclear material on it, headed to Iran or something, so I guess who done that? My last video, at 7 hours, I had 100 views. You can see it up in the corner, 100 views. At 9 hours, I had 100 views, the middle one. And at 10 hours, I still had 100 views. Stuff like that motivates me to get here and do what I'm doing right now. Do an extra show or two. I'll go back to that other story that I just left. I want to delete the things that I've already covered because sometimes I have a hard time. New evacuation border baffles and splits the community in Fukushima. This is 2021. So the house on the right, up here, in Okayama, which is, if you go down the road, you can see the nuclear meltdowns from there, remains off limit even after evacuation orders lifted next spring for the two houses on the other side of the road. So you're not allowed to cross the street because it's too radioactive, but it's okay to live in the house across the street. Do you got any idea how evil this industry actually is? And the reason they get away with that is because they're out there screeching that it's like a banana and a potato chip and walking in the sunshine and climbing mountains and sleeping next to somebody. And evacuees are eager to finally return to their homes near the hobbled. This is 2021. This is what they looked like in 2012. There was nothing left. That's hobbled data. Have been thrown into confusion over the way evacuation orders will be lifted. It'll end in parts of difficult return zone 6 months in July. This was July to what? Or November the 5th, 2021. So December, January, February, March, April. So April of 2022. But not all of them, as the town of Okayama had hoped. But why would you want to go back into a nuclear nightmare? What would be the point of that? So think about this plume. This is only 20 days of neptunium that after 2.5 days changed to plutonium. The model is based on 20 days. So almost all of it is now converted over to plutonium-239. So imagine being at ground zero of something that covered the whole planet, Earth, our only planet, with a toxin that there's no species on the planet has an autoimmune trigger to defend against it. In other words, it attacks every species, and it destroys your health, it compromises your immune systems right away. And he compromised with the central government. The town accepted a boundary that cuts across the neighborhood of Okayama, creating a livable enclave surrounded on all sides by a nuclear wasteland. It's the most batshit story imaginable. This is not a livable area surrounded by a nuclear wasteland. Radiation is not stationary. First off, you'll be allowed to live in those houses across the street, but not in that house. But CC-137, for instance, will pulse energy 600 feet. So suggesting that side would be safe and that side would be safe, but this side wouldn't, is absurd. But the reason they get away with that is because they have people confused after 8 decades of claiming that it's like a banana and potato chips, and sunshine and air travel, and sleeping next to somebody. And all of these got nothing to do with anthropogenic man-made radiation, which suffered a triple meltdown, which I find very offensive to suggest this was it was 4 reactors in a row. That's reactor 4, that's not counted. So if that's not a nuclear meltdown, what is it? You see the Somalis are in Minnesota, was it? Don't quote me. Got caught running a fake daycare. And they said someone broke in and stole the list of children at the daycare. Now, why would they had to break in through the dollar store to get there? So why would you go through the dollar store where you got all kinds of stuff you can steal to get in to steal a list? And if you stole a list, well, all the teachers or all the daycare would know everybody. They got the numbers on their phones and everything. Why would you break in the day before you got exposed to steal a list? It doesn't make any sense at all. But yet the media is out there defending that, right? Apparently that's not the only one. But don't worry, it's a triple meltdown because we're not going to count that. That one didn't melt down. We don't know what happened to it. We don't know what happened to the 9 reactor cores. They're gone. But officially, it's not a meltdown. It's okay. It's officially, actually, they said they got the fuel out of the pools. If you're confused, well, congratulations. Welcome to nuclear. This is what it allegedly looks like instead of what it actually looks like. Right? They use remote control cranes and homeless people till they clean up around it with remote control cranes, and then they sold you that picture. And United Nations was the orchestrator of that lie. So calling it a triple meltdown, how can you call it a triple meltdown and not include reactor 4, which had non-reactor cores that are missing, were 100 feet above the stump you're looking at. Clearly the building is destroyed. Sometimes I'm beginning to doubt myself that that's destroyed. I know. I was kind of taken, I don't know why, but I woke up this morning with a tally of how many evil things were done to me on this journey that I've been on for 24 years with nuclear. I had mixed feelings all day. I just want to do a shakedown tonight, do a show. But there's so many things that were done to me. So many people tried to stop me. There's there's incredible amount of effort, and still is, to demonize me and vilify me and smear me. And I have to ignore all of it. I can't keep up with it. I can't do nothing about most of it. And it's been going on for a very long time. I've been under siege for so long, almost 2.5 decades. I mean, under siege. I'm under siege. And I'm heartbroken because I'm the only person running an educational program. And I find that very difficult to accept. Disappointing, right? We're at the precipice now of a brutal extinction event, right? It's all the whales are emaciated. It's next level that we're seeing. Our poor planet now is compromised. The health of everybody's compromised. All the trees, all the plants, everything is compromised because of the nuclear industry's emissions for 80 years. And this stuff never goes away. Everything they created, all the fuel pools are still hemorrhaging radiation. But there was a lot of personal moments where people betrayed me, and I couldn't. I couldn't deal with it, right? Just for a little while here today, I was just overwhelmed. There was radio shows, for instance. There was a small modular reactor company down in Oregon. Played a game with me for about 2 months, pretended that they were anti-nuclear organization, that help was on the way, that I was going to get all the support that I ever needed, and we could go after this industry. And then the day that was all that happened, it turned out they were pulling my leg the whole time, and they dropped the hammer on me and mocked me, and there was a bunch of them laughing in the background. And done a show that night on schedule as usual. And I just had to move on, keep going. It's all you can do. But there's been so many circumstances, like my diving injury. I was denied any compensation for that. And I don't know how that was ever possible. What they do is they keep you strung on the string for 10 years or so until you finally give up, right? And I had kept the same pair of sneakers that I had walked in. I had a brand new pair of sneakers just before I got hurt. And they were put away because I was on the ocean, so they were in nice shape, clean, perfect. And I kept them out in the open, and every day I would look at them and say, one of these days I'm going to use them again. It took me over a decade to learn to walk just feebly again, just to get out of the hospital bed in the wheelchair. And I never lost a faith, I still, when I first started doing research expeditions on the ocean, I still had a wheelchair with me everywhere, and sticks for the backup, right? Because you're out in the oil all the time. And I had lost my wheelchair over in a storm trying to get into Prince Rupert, and I was forced to use sticks. And so to compensate for all this, I would pay the taxi drivers, because I'm on a boat by myself, lost for months at a time on the ocean. You get into these ports and you just pay the taxi driver whatever it took to get them to do everything for you, right? Get your groceries, get your laundry, and you always had to ask people. And then on the beaches, I would just go up on the beaches and I would park my boat and I would get on the bow of the boat. And it was really hard to work the camera when you weren't sitting in the boat, right? But you had to go ashore at low tide because the urge. And so you would get up and you just move around on the beach as best you can, but you wouldn't travel very far. And by and by, you were using one stick. And eventually one day, I went on the beach and I had the sticks there, but I didn't take them with me. And I was like 50 feet away from the boat, and I realized I didn't have my sticks. You know, your walking sticks, like the ones that goes around your arm. And I was panicked. And like I said to myself, I was really proud of myself, but I was panicking because I was getting weak. And I was saying, well, I got to get back to the boat. And it was really weird how that played out for me. But it was a big moment for me. I remember I celebrated the night that I'd done that. It was total shock. Here I was, 50 feet away from the boat, the little Zodiac, right? And I was, you're out there for 4 to 5 to 6 months at a time by yourself. And you're doing everything yourself. You just start to rewire your brain, your body. It was a long, hard drive. A long, hard push. You should save my energy every day before that. And so I always wanted to stand up in the shower and get a shower, but it was over a decade before I was able to do that. But you should save my energy all day so I could stand up and do the dishes. At the end of the day, I was saving my dishes for the end of the day. And then that was a big moment for me. Wow. That was a big deal. I stood up on my own, right? And I was at hunting the nuclear industry the entire time. I was getting re-educated. I had over 7,000 lectures on nuclear. I was totally obsessed with nuclear. I realized, originally I was pro-nuclear, believe it or not. Oh, this is fantastic. Wow, this is crazy. I start really diving into it. Then I go like, what the hell is going on here? So my awakening was like a self awakening where I started saying, well, that's a lie and this is a lie. And then this next professor, and I was really, back in those days, the Harvard and Yale and Stanford and Oxford and MIT and Cambridge and everybody else and Berkeley, California, were starting to put their lessons online, like the classroom lessons, videos of the classroom lesson. And it was the first time in history we've ever seen anything like that. It was the first time in history the mere mortals had access to what, I considered the major shakers and movers. And my interpretation of the academics in those days, the very first couple of years, was that they got the job because they're the best that money can buy. They're the elite of the elite. They're the shakers and movers. They're the best. And so I'm learning the same thing. I was like, wow, I'm learning from the best, right? That's a long time ago, 24 years ago. And then over the next few years, just the video quality started getting better. Because you got to remember, back in those days, video quality was pretty shitty, right? Like 240p or something. But it was still, it was magic, It was a magic time. But I started discovering all these discrepancies. I was like a banana, and it's like a potato chip, and it's like walking in the sunshine. And it's very dangerous. It can kill you, and it's harmless and innocuous. Don't breathe it in. Don't drink it. And it's like a banana, but don't let it near your loved ones. And so it was a long, slow, methodical awakening. It was very difficult to flush out the truth. Very difficult to get your hands on the truth. So like even today, that never happened. The Fisher stories, that never happened. So the industry's been doing this for 80 years. But they're saying it looks like this. Now that would be 150 feet above the stump over there. And if you look at the top of it, there's not much to it. That's reactor 3, reactor 4. I was supposed to find that plutonium X oxide story, wasn't I? Triple meltdown. The road is busy with trucks for post-disaster rebuilding and passenger cars. Well, they're moving 30 million one-ton bags. Like logistically, how much gas are you burning every day? The trucks they were using were 14,000 pounds. They can hold 7 tons. So 7 bags, 7 one-ton bags, which in Japan is 2,200 pounds because they're metric. Same as here in Canada. Same as France. The reason we're metric is because we had our government, rather, was manipulated heavily by France and United Kingdom, obviously. We have King Charles, I can't believe I'm saying that out loud, picture on our money. The road is busy for trucks with post-disaster rebuilding work and passenger cars down about in Kuma, Fukushima nuclear wasteland. But the streets beyond the barricades along the roads are still lined with empty houses. The specified reconstruction revitalization-based zoning system was a product of compromise to promote decontamination work for the lifting of evacuation orders only in limited parts of difficult to return zone. Limited parts of the difficult to return zone. Lifting of evacuation orders only in limited parts of the nuclear wastelands. When you hear difficult to return zone, that's a new connotation. Normally you would call it a nuclear wasteland. I'm not doing a long show. I just wanted to do a show. I wanted to shake off whatever evil thing there was this morning that came into my life and tried to suck the life out of me. Okayama Town representatives, and I guess because it's the 1st of January, call for a lifting of all difficulty returns zone designations. These are nuclear wasteland, while the reactors are still melting down. So the evilness is over the top. But when Fukushima happened, there was something extra going on. I've always been hated, and that hate, there's more than enough to go around for me, unfortunately. The industry it can't handle any light shining on it whatsoever. It can't withstand any scrutiny, right? Let's come back to the other story that I jumped over. River fishing limits remain 11 years after the nuclear disaster. This is 2022, March the 7th. This is Minamasoma, Fukushima Prefecture. This is around 15 kilometers from the ongoing, never-ending nightmare that is nuclear. He signed a lot, and I feel better already, so I'm glad I've done the little stream here tonight. He signed along the Managawa River that runs through. We're going to have a big snowstorm tomorrow. Big snowstorm on Sunday. We're going to get around 50 centimeters or more of snow, 60 centimeters, 2 feet of snow almost. It's a lot of snow. I'm ready for it, I think. I spent all day yesterday getting ready and then went out and done a few little things today. I'm going to go back to the radioactive rivers. This is freshwater rivers. People are using the rivers for farms and for their water, for their food, and for their pets, and for their communities, and for their washing, and their cooking, and their showers. And this is, but you don't go fishing, everything will be okay. It's crazy talk, right? It's on along the Managawa River that runs from Minamasoma, Fukushima Prefecture, is faded. The message is clear and perhaps unnecessary. Minamasoma, of course, was abandoned for about 7 years, and while they reopened the nuclear wasteland, it can only be described as evil and monstrous, and murderous. Regulations are signs along the bank, I think there's around 50 of it or something, Please do not consider fishing activities. Regulations have yet to be lifted. Why would you ever go into a nuclear wasteland? Because you were bombarded with propaganda that is harmless, like a natural, or bananas, or sunshine, or air travel, or walking in the sunshine, or sleeping next to somebody, or climbing mountains, or it's just a disgusting industry. There's no good people in this industry whatsoever. And then CERN itself, there's sadistic little demons, self-centered, egotistic, monstrous little demonic demons. The sign is located on a riverbank 30 kilometers from nuclear meltdowns. Just to give you some context, the food was banned in half the country, not just the Fukushima prefecture, not just Okayama. The radiation, do you really think that's the limit? Do you really think that, like they never stopped growing food in the nuclear wasteland. Each of these prefectures, there's 14 of them, were banned by 55 countries for a decade. And now there's about 20 left or something. The ones that lifted restrictions were because the people that done something moral and ethical were replaced with the next administration who weren't moral. And each of these prefectures are growing about 1 billion pounds of rice. And they're shipping it to your countries worldwide so you get sick and die. Now hardly anyone is around to see the sign. This is 2022 story, by the way. So this is just 3 years ago. After the 2000, radiation doesn't go away ever. After the nuclear disaster, everything they created is still out there pulsing energy at the speed of light every second, destroying everything within proximity or that's infested with it. After the 2011 nuclear disaster, a local association of fisheries cooperatives set up the no fishing sign at about 50 locations along the river. These are places where every time you shake a tree or you rub up against a tree, you're getting coated with radioactive fallout. When you go home, you put your clothing in your washing machine, you contaminate everything in your house forever after. You're already contaminated being in that environment. But because they've been bombarded with the propaganda that nuclear fallout is harmless, then they don't know how to make an informed decision. With 50 locations along the river, but it's still okay for the farmers to take that water and grow food. It's still okay for families to drink that water, to wash in that water, to do the laundry in that water, to brush their teeth with that water, to give that to their pets. Japanese dace and trout were found with concentrations of radioactive substances. So total disregard of any kind of articulation, substances that exceeded the national safety standards, which they kept raising over and over. There are many people who say, I don't think I can go fishing again in my lifetime. There was one guy who owned a fishing store in Minnesota, which is a brutal nuclear wasteland of 20,000 atoms per kilogram, multiplied by 66.6 to get a square meter. His shop sales plummeted, thank goodness. And many other fishing goods shops in the city have gone out of business, thank goodness. Restrictions lifted for seafood. The nuclear disaster led to restrictions on shipments of seafood products in 5 prefectures, from the northern tip to Ibaraki up by Fukushima. These restrictions were lifted in states because radioactive substances more easily diffuse in the sea. They spread out and radiate everything. Well, first off, you got to stop it from going into the sea. The whole country, every time it rains, is washing. The entire country will wash radiation into the ocean from that nuclear meltdown of radioactive materials. And fish species have not been confirmed safe to eat. By who? By what? This is March 7, 2022. The central government has conducted decontamination work mainly, not the homeless and the destitute and the victims of society, immigrants who don't speak the language, who don't know what they're doing, who don't have an education, who are incapable of making informed decisions. Mainly in residential areas of Fukushima prefecture and surrounding prefectures. 30 million one-ton bags of topsoil is still not decontamination. Or you can't decontaminate a house. How does that work? Such work has not been done in most parts of the large forested areas. Insects and other critters ingest still contaminated tree leaves and algae on the river bottom. Algae is known to aggregate massive amounts of radiation. The river fish then consume the creatures, which has kept radioactive concentrations high in the fish. Well, it's got to be in the water for all of that to work in the first place. So the water's radioactive too. They're refusing. They're framing it that way so the water sounds like it's safe. Oh, it's just in the leaves. It's just in the algae on the floor. Everything else is fine. No, it's not. And Fukushima University, these people should be in jail for the rest of their lives. The Fukushima prefectural government, these are crimes against humanity we're talking about, people. The National Institute for Environmental Studies, the betrayal of betrayals, have faked surveys along the Okayama River that stretches from Namie to Mimosoma in Fukushima prefecture since 2018. Why didn't you do that before, you pieces of shit? You parasites. The upper part of the Okayama River is located in a difficult to return zone because of still high radiation levels. In other words, it's a nuclear wasteland, a massive nuclear wasteland. These are parasites, eh? In an on-site survey in December, the researchers found that the radiation dose in the air of the upstream forested areas, in the air, airborne, of the difficult to return zone, the nuclear wasteland, was... You can't, why would you measure microsieverts when you're talking about physical atoms that are floating around? You should be measuring in becquerels. It was 20 to 30 times higher than the dose rates in the city of Fukushima. And we know the city of Fukushima is around 300,000 atoms per square meter of just cesium-137. And the researchers found 9,000 becquerels of radioactive material per kilogram in Yamami cut in the upper portion of the river in 2018 and 12,000 per kilogram in Iwana. And the radioactivity concentration in tree leaves and river algae were several thousands to tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of becquerels per kilogram. And crickets, bees, and other land and aquatic creatures found in the trout's stomach are believed to have eaten the contaminated leaves and algae. Are believed. No, it's just the water is so radioactive. Insects in the area contain radioactivity levels of several hundred to several thousand becquerels. Right, so there's a whole lot of misdirection going on here, but basically every species is incredibly contaminated. And the majority of the species are gone because they're only talking about, they're not identifying any species except for two, trouts, the cricket bees, so-called. There's other research showing they don't even exist in those areas. The larger freshwater fish had radioactivity concentration levels that were higher than those in the food that the fish ate. Yeah, it's called bioaccumulation. Unless you do something with the radioactive material in forest, the radioactivity concentration levels in the fish will not go down. But decontamination forest is not realistic either. And so now they're going to allegedly decontaminate the forest, right? Yeah, I had like a almost demonic experience there today. And I said, well, whatever's going on is... It was just a reminder that evil, I guess, is unbelievably prevalent now. The nuclear industry has corrupted hundreds of millions of academics. worldwide. And again, here's another community. I call it Lydiot, but I'm probably pronouncing it wrong because I'm not from Japan. Will be the first to lift evacuation orders without decontamination. Without decontamination. Well, by then they're running out of the homeless and the destitute and the victims of society, right? The Deputy Director General. Deputy Director General. In other words, he's the big piece of shit himself. Of the government's nuclear emergency response headquarters, I think it was Ronald Reagan said, the last thing you want to hear in a crisis is, hi, we're from the government, we're here to help. That's the very last thing you want to ever hear because you know it's all over after that. The government is just the most wicked, evilest, anti-reality people on the planet. Explains the status of the difficult return zone to Lydiot village residents at a briefing to the village residents. Explains the status of the nuclear wasteland to the villagers who have been manipulated the entire 10 years by bananas and sunshine and walking in sunshine and sleeping next to somebody and flying on airplanes and climbing mountains. Propaganda, and they wouldn't even be there. They wouldn't be debating, having a conversation. They wouldn't be wanting the community ever to open again to anybody. They would be like me and you. They would be rallying against this madness, this betrayal. Lydiot Village near the Fukushima No. 1, the Ichii site, plans to lift the evacuation order next spring for a small portion of the nuclear wasteland, or as the Japs like to call it, a difficult return zone, the nuke Japs, so it can reclaim space for a park. So if you're not going to clean it up, you're going to call it a park, reclaim space for a park. You got any idea how freaking sadistic and evil you got to be to suggest that that's an option? This marks the first time an evacuation order will be lifted without first carrying out decontamination work, where the government makes it easier to lift evacuation orders in 2020. Yeah, just lift it. We don't care. We're not going to live there. Makes the nuclear industry look better. Less ammunition for moral people to utilize against the industry. The order was originally issued due to high levels of radiation detected following the tripled. It's absurd to say Fukushima Reactor 4 didn't melt down. It's absurd. Whew. I was out in Savanna this morning, and I'm still doing that routine where I'll sit in the sauna until I start sweating, and then I'll set the timer for 60 minutes. And I was just going through this whole list of evil shit that's been done to me, evil shit said about me. And, I'm not really going to discuss a lot of that because you're going to just give these people the platform they should never, ever, under any circumstances, be allowed to have, right? But anybody who's been around a long time knows who I'm talking about, some of them anyway. There was just so many things that I think most people would have gave up and would have quit. And probably wouldn't have seen any other option. I know a lot of times that's what I wanted to do, but I knew that I didn't have an option. I knew that times would be brutal for me. I knew this would never, my life was forever wrecked, right? But as long as we can produce these types of presentations, these explanations of what's going on and what happened, and provide the documentation, which is a brutal, ridiculous amount of work. But it almost looks like my whole life was designed to make sure I couldn't ever even get to this point. That they threw up so many obstacles, and they hurt me in so many ways. I had some wins, but I'm so I think I like to believe that I'm very capable. That if I was given the opportunity, I'll bring it home for us. This planet won't regret taking a chance on me. Because it's not that I believe, it's that I know that I was meant to do what I'm doing. That was just, my whole life was about this. And all the obstacles they threw at me were very hurtful stuff that's been said about me. And I'm actually, anybody who knows me knows what I'm like. I'm dedicated. I'm a very caring person. I really do love life. I love the species. I covet every day on this planet. And that I have good intentions. It's really sad that there's just this little tiny group of people that have a moral compass, that are honest and sincere and genuine and refuse to go away. And in the annals of history, will never go away, that's for sure. History will always say there was this little tiny group of good people, kind people, morally driven people, rose above the rest and refused to ignore it. And society will never regret we done what we done. Not even for a second. The world will regret and will hate this industry for what they done. So they open up this little tiny area in a nuclear wasteland, and then they're going to call it a park and encourage people to go to work. We'll set up shields, steel plates, on the ground to prevent exposure to radiation. It doesn't work that way. The radiation, if there's a tree 600 feet away from you, it's pulsing anthropogenic man-made radiation that will harm your loved ones and yourself. The government, the idiot machines, designated areas with ratings of more than 50,000 microsieverts a year as difficult to return zones. That doesn't mean that's the limit, 50 millisieverts. Remember the story about Chernobyl we covered, where they found a speck out in the forest, not too far from, far enough, many miles away from Chernobyl, that was at around 4 sieverts. A little piece of fuel ended up flying that far, and or ending up going that far. And that's a lethal dose, 4 sieverts. The land that will be decontaminated by removing topsoil contaminated with radioactive. You can't decontaminate land by removing topsoil. You're talking about 3% of the total land mass. This is in the Fukushima prefecture, for instance. 97%, the minute you dig up that 3%, the other 97% will recontaminate that right away. I mean, the very next day it'll be the same kind of contamination there. When it rains, it's going to be hideous. You won't be able to discern it from any other area in a nuclear wasteland. In December 2020, the government created new criteria for lifting an evacuation order for land outside the special zones where radiation levels are below the standard due to natural denigration. It doesn't work that way. The radiation doesn't go away. It infiltrates. It digs in. It bonds. It's organically bound. It's assimilated into the roots, into the branches, into the trees, into the bark, into every facet of that ecosystem. It doesn't go away. Just like we're not going away. I'm not going away. I'm just going to get better every day. You can hate me all you want. You can disrupt my life all you want, and you've done that now for 24 years, 25 years this year. A lifetime, eh? And everything you've done to me just made me stronger. Just made me more resilient. And the more you isolate me, the more time you give me to educate myself. I was created just to do what I do. I don't regret a second of it, not 1 second of it. It was very, this morning I had that moment where that lasted quite a while, and I had to get up and get into the sauna and just clear my mind, but it was really unusual, right? We had all of these things that I try to forget that was done to me running through my head. I'll have to worry about that tomorrow morning because we'll have so much snow out there. I'll be too busy trying to extract myself. And then the plow will be back and forth. It's going to be a nasty day tomorrow. We're going to get like 4 centimeters an hour of snowfall. It's going to be hardcore, man. That's hardcore. Nothing got out. Everything's like a banana, ain't it? Except it's not. Nothing's like a banana. Nothing man-made, anyway. And a banana, of course, is potassium. Everybody loves potassium. You can't live without potassium. You have to have potassium. It was the same thing as this story here. These were pictures I released. There's 736 pictures, mystery pictures. You'll find them all on my site if you look for 736 mystery pictures. There's 2 videos, one 4 years ago and one last year. Watch the one last year because we got the updated info, right? There's 736 pictures, and when I zoomed in on them, this was the common spent fuel pool. Why is it pixelated out? It was right across the street from reactor 3 and 4, which I showed you over and over again. And this is reactor 6 in the top corner. When you zoom in on it, why is that pixelated and the turbine building? Why are they pixelated out? Why were those pictures released 10 years later? And there was no explanation. When I zoomed in, these were drone shots, high-quality drone. And when you zoomed in, look at that, this pixelated. But I'm like, holy shit. I got 736 pictures. Now I got to go through every single picture and scrutinize everything on it. And that takes a long time, believe it or not. Because there's a lot in a lot of these pictures from the zooms. We should do the zooming in shots. We should do another video on this. Should it be a crime to claim nuclear fallout is harmless? Natural bananas, sunshine, air travel, walking in sunshine, sleeping next to somebody, climbing mountains. It's outrageous that 80 years of that lie, 80 years. I was watching James's video last night. It's in the playlist already, but nuclear municipal wastewater cooling. There's 2 links below the video. It'll make you sick to your guts if you know anything about nuclear. How evil this industry actually is. And again, I love these types of videos where you get the infrastructure of the nuclear site. and they get some good music. We'll play that for a closer tonight. And hopefully we'll see you on Sunday. I don't know if I'll make it on Sunday because there's so much snow. I probably will. I probably will. I hope everybody had a great New Year's. I've never stopped working myself. I'll see everybody on the next show. Hugs for everybody. Have a great night. Take care.
Of shit water pipe, 124 inches buried deep, pumped uphill using parasitic power, megawatts spent just to transport effluent. Pissed to steam, flushed to fission, lifted against gravity and heat. Phoenix calls it a closed loop vision, day after day against the grade. 70 million gallons a day needed for the condenser stage. Cooling towers in triple digit hell, fed straight from municipality drains. Lying lagoons where the brine gets baked, too toxic for lungs, fine for reclaimed. Piped down through the desert rock, sourced directly from toilet stock. They call it responsible zero discharge, but nothing comes back once it's gone. It's up on wastewater. My nuclear. No one is up on wastewater. Reuse until exhaustion hits. 25 cycles, then it quits. Brine tube. Vapor gone. Evaporated into dry air. Single direction system. End of loop. Millions spent to pump and treat so the plant can stay elite. If the city doesn't send its bucket of piss, turbines will routinely self-trip. A flush-dependent enterprise. Nuclear. No one is up on wastewater cooling. No nuclear. No one is up on wastewater cooling. That's what cooling. So flush for fish and Palo Verde Desert King, cooled by flushing the American dream. So flush, flush. Sick bastard.